So, The Exorcist, when it first came out in 1973, was such a massive hit for Warner Brothers that they decided to greenlight a sequel. And after 4 years of false starts, ideas not catching on, being unable to get the original cast back, they finally did manage to get a decent enough script put together to get Linda Blair back and the studio to give them the go ahead and the ball to roll, and we got the Heretic, Exorcist 2, in 87. Now, there's a problem here right off the bat, just more off of principle. Slasher movies basically are cash cows that they just keep milking for every dime and penny because there's the villain who keeps coming back. How do they come back? What are they doing this time? Blah, 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 blah. Well, The Exorcist didn't really leave itself as open as a slasher movie would. There was no villain. The villain we saw was, while interesting, also generic. There is nothing that we could really tell that made this demon its own person, I guess. It's a weird way to say it, but it didn't have a specific personality outside of mean and evil and all that. So going into a sequel, it's really kind of hit or miss. So you really needed an original character to come back, which we did get thanks to Linda Blair, who she does as best as she could possibly do with this. She is not bad. None of the acting in this is bad at all. The problem is just how everybody is used and how the story is laid out. What do I mean by that? A Father Lamont is doing an exorcism, South America, I want to say, at the start of the film, and it's a failure. The allegedly possessed person who was calling themselves a faith healer, healing the sick, all that, gets lit on fire. When she gets too close to some candles, she goes up, and now he's just kind of, well, uh-oh. He's, again, a priest on shaky ground with his faith. And so his next mission is to investigate the death of Father Marin from the original film. Because the church's ideology at this time is moving away from what he believed. So they're trying to kind of distance themselves from Marin. So Lamont has to kind of follow through and find out what happened 4 years ago with the circumstances of his death. And to do that, he's got to meet Reagan, and she's seeing a psychiatrist, and she's getting help in, I don't want to call it a psychiatric hospital, but it's basically a very, very nice psychiatric hospital. And she kind of knows things now. She's psychic, is the way that this goes. And part of this weird story, which is something that Marin believed, was people with psychic abilities, precognition, telepathy, all that would eventually begin to grow in number, and pretty soon everyone would be like that, and it's what would ultimately bring humanity together. Okay, that's interesting. That's an interesting angle. And it does kind of lend a smidge of credence to why her. There was no specific reason to point out why it was her. There was a Ouija board that we knew she played with in the original, but maybe that was it. Maybe it wasn't. Who knows? So this was kind of a nice little tie-in, and it is something that they ride through to the exorcism in Africa that Marin did 20 years before the original. So Lamont meets Reagan, and all right, does she remember anything? She says no. Her psychiatrist says no, but he gets this feeling like there's something there. Maybe she doesn't remember everything, but she remembers a good deal of something. And then this is the part where the movie really starts going downhill, and it doesn't stop till you hit the end credits. They introduce a machine that synchronizes your brain with somebody else's with some flashing lights, and then you can share each other's memories and all that. Yeah, it really takes a hard left right there. and it hurts. It hurts, this movie. Really, just bad. And this is the beginning of where it starts getting weird and bad. So, Reagan is dealing with her connection to the demon. That's sort of still there, but it's weird. It's like her and the demon still have a connection, and now that Lamont is in there, it's kicking on the locust nest. Holy crap, oh my god. Alright, I'll get there. So, Lamont starts following the trail of Marin and ends up in Africa and the exorcism from 20 years ago. And he finds out the demon's name is Pazuzu, and he's like an air demon and locusts are like his symbol or something. I have no idea for sure. But there's like massive locusts all over the back half of this thing. It's, I don't know. And then he comes back and he teams up with Reagan because they got to go fight Pazuzu in the original house from the first one. And her psychiatrist follows, and the nanny from the first one is still there, kind of being the caretaker for Reagan, even though we clearly saw that she pretty much quit in the first one. And then Lamont fights a weird doppelganger of Reagan, and they win at the end, I think. Yeah, it's weird. Now again, sequels are hard, especially to really top tier films. Sequels are just a bitch to do. So coming into this, I have no ill will towards anybody. I totally get wanting to grab some money, especially easy money, which this film did end up turning a profit. The 3 films in the franchise after this didn't. This was the last successful Exorcist film. And from what I've found out online researching them, this is most people's pick for the worst. And I haven't seen all of the 3 after this. But this one's pretty bad. And it's a really weird kind of bad. It almost kind of has to shake the story from the original to get itself to work. Like, why are locusts important now when they were never even popped up in the first one? What's up with this synchronizing machine? Like, it's nice that we get a few extra scenes with Father Marin with a returning Max von Sydow. You'll have to forgive me on that one. I'm terrible with names. And that's really cool, getting a little bit more into his backstory, a little bit more into what happened 20 years ago, and I love that. That works on paper. It doesn't work in the film, because we find out that the boy he exorcised was also a psychic faith healer guy who was trying to maybe banish Pazuzu, but ended up possessed, so then Marin had to step in, and they were climbing down a cliff face for some reason. A lot of this feels so mismatched. It feels like they had a script, and then on day 3, they had to start ripping out pages. Like, we can't do this, we can't do that, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that instead. And hey, we've got this set from another movie over there, like, let's use it. And that's because it kind of was. Linda Blair admitted that the film she signed on to is not what you see on the screen. There were changes during production, and sadly that does happen a lot, especially in more high-profile films like this. And I think that's such a drag. The idea is there that this battle between Marin and Pazuzu that has spanned so long is continuing now through Reagan. That works. The demon wasn't banished back to hell when Karras died, sacrificing himself, refinding his faith in the first one, and now it's out there and it's coming back for Reagan. That's interesting. Another priest with waning faith. That's still an interesting easy way to fix it is have Lamont be the same, but now he's digging into Marin's death. He thinks it's just an old man with an old heart. It gave out. That's all it was. There was some sort of a scuffle. Maybe Karis was depressed and he jumped. That's all what he believes. And they have Regan still have a connection to the demon, and Lamont kind of gets whirled into it. And once again it comes down to he has to refine his faith to defeat the demon, but this time he has to do it right. It's the weight of Karis' death, the weight of Marin's battle has now fallen onto him, and he is here to ensure that the demon goes away. Right there's your entire third act. Like, this has become his mission. Instead of whatever we got with Locusts. You didn't need the Locusts. Holy crap, the Locusts. I will ride that pony forever, because boy is that a kick in the shins. Overall, there's not a lot to like about it. The acting is good. The return to the house, it looks good. What they do with its destruction is good. That's about all I can really give it. Some of the story with Regan is interesting, like how she gets a girl who is mute or something to start speaking again. That's interesting. That was really cool. We got to see a lot of Regan. We see that the real difference between the possessed demon and all that and who she really is. She's a good, kind person, whereas the demon was manipulative, psychotic, evil. And again, that would have really helped build into a finale that wasn't confusing. Oy. And this was a first time watch for me. So my feelings about it might change if I swing back through it one day. I'm definitely not going to do it anytime soon, because this was a weird not drag. It wasn't a drag. There were no points where I was like, holy, this is really slowing down on me. The acting and the pacing, it was good enough to keep me invested. It's just the story didn't. I wasn't interested in the next scene. I was just kind of interested in how the acting was going, how everything looked, all that, which is really sad. Film should always entertain you. You should always be wondering what's next. What's next? I loved what came before. I love where it's happening now. I hope I love what's coming next, because I want to get there. All of this is pushing me to the next part, but this I never felt the push. It didn't drag me back wishing, man, I wish I was in the last scene, or I wish I was through this scene because this scene sucks. It was just enough to kind of chug me along, which is really depressing. And we did get, of course, a sequel to this, which pretty much entirely ignored this one because so many people hated this. This is probably one of the more interesting examples of it made us money, but everyone hates it. So we're just gonna cut our ties, because why waste a buttload more money on the next one if we've already burned so many people off of it. So I will really give the producers behind it, all of the heads of state of the film, a lot of credit on that. Especially nowadays when it's, did we make money? Yes, we did. Well, let's do another one. You know, that happens a lot these days, so to see it not happen when you are still making a profit, kudos. God, this Locusts. So where does this kind of fall? It's definitely not in the higher echelons of ratings like the original was, because this is such a letdown in so many ways. But again, I didn't hate it. I'm definitely not going to throw it out on the yard and burn it. So I definitely think it's probably a decent 2 out of 5, which is kind of the problem with a 5-star rating system. Like, 2 to 5 isn't very far, but there's a lot of gaps in there now. So, I've been Rob. Take it easy.
Eventually.
So, end of a video, time to plug somebody. Naturally, I'll go ahead and plug myself, because might as well plug yourself. Nobody else is gonna. And I think for the next YouTuber I'm gonna promote, I'm gonna go with Cody Leach. I've really been enjoying his horror reviews over the last probably year or so. He actually just did the Rob Zombie films, the Firefly trilogy in particular, along with the Monsters. Haven't seen the Monsters yet, have seen the Firefly trilogy. I might do those one day. But I definitely enjoy his videos very much. He's to the point, he keeps you entertained. He knows what he's doing. Give him a watch.